The room fell silent as Commander Jiwoo entered the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The circular hall stretched upward into a dome of shimmering light, with seats arranged in rising tiers occupied by representatives from over 50 spacefaring civilizations. Jiwoo kept her face calm, despite the familiar tension building in her shoulders. She wore the crisp blue uniform of Earth's Space Command, adorned with only her rank insignia and the small Earth emblem. The simplicity stood in stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garb of the older species. As she took her seat at the lowest tier, the place always reserved for humanity, she noticed the subtle smirks exchanged among the Valerian delegation. "The Council recognizes Earth's representative," announced the ancient moderator, his translucent skin barely concealing the complex network of nerves beneath. "Commander Jiwoo, you may present your petition." Jiwoo stood, activating the holographic display before her. "Thank you, honored moderator. Earth requests access to the shared scientific database regarding gravitational wave manipulation. Our scientists believe we could make valuable contributions to this field." Before the moderator could respond, High Commander Thex of the Valerians rose from his seat. His silver-scaled skin caught the light as he gestured with six-fingered hands. "With all respect to our youngest members," he said, not bothering to hide his patronizing tone, "gravitational wave technology requires mastery of fifth-dimensional mathematics. Humanity has barely scratched the surface of four-dimensional understanding." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Jiwoo noticed several representatives not even trying to hide their amusement. "Our calculations suggest otherwise," Jiwoo replied evenly. "We've made significant progress in theoretical applications that—" "Theoretical," interrupted Thex with a sound like laughter. "My dear Commander, theory without application is merely philosophy. Perhaps in another century, your species might be ready for such knowledge." The Valerian turned to address the wider council. "We suggest instead that Earth be granted expanded access to our educational archives on basic interstellar navigation. We've noticed their colony ships still rely on primitive plotting techniques." More laughter followed. Jiwoo's hand tightened on the edge of her console, but her voice remained steady. "Earth withdraws its petition," she said simply. "We thank the Council for its consideration." As she left the chamber, Jiwoo heard Thex call after her. "Commander, the Valerian delegation will visit Earth next month. We look forward to touring your advanced facilities." Back aboard the Prometheus, parked in the diplomatic docking ring of the Council station, Jiwoo finally allowed her frustration to show. She slammed her hand against the wall of the airlock as it cycled shut behind her. "Another productive day at the office?" asked Dr. Taiho, looking up from his data tablet. The ship's chief scientist had dark circles under his eyes, evidence of the long hours he'd been working. "Thex is coming to Earth next month," Jiwoo replied, walking to the bridge with Taiho following. "With a full delegation. Wants to tour our facilities." Taiho's expression darkened. "Perfect. Just what we need. More opportunities for them to laugh at us." The bridge of the Prometheus looked ordinary from the outside. Standard navigation stations, communication arrays, and tactical displays. Nothing that would raise eyebrows from the inspection teams that regularly examined visiting vessels. The ship's true heart remained hidden. "How's the work progressing?" Jiwoo asked, lowering her voice despite the security measures that prevented any listening devices from functioning aboard. Taiho's tired face broke into a smile. "Come see for yourself." They entered Jiwoo's private office, where Taiho pressed his palm against an unmarked section of wall. A hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow corridor that led deep into the ship's center. At the end was a circular chamber housing a device unlike anything the Council races had ever seen. Chief Engineer Hyun Ki and Dr. Hannah looked up from their work as Jiwoo and Taiho entered. Suspended in the center of the room was a crystalline structure that seemed to shift and change, even as Jiwoo looked at it. Energy pulses flowed through transparent conduits, feeding into the device from all directions. "We've achieved stability at 60% power," announced Hannah, her eyes bright with excitement despite her obvious fatigue. The dimensional fold held for nearly 3 minutes. That's double our previous record, Hyun-Ki added. We're making real progress. Jai-Woo approached the device, studying the readouts. Will it be ready before the Valerian delegation arrives? The 3 scientists exchanged glances. We're close, Tai-Ho said cautiously. Very close. But we need to solve the power fluctuation issue during the dimensional transition. If we don't, the drive could collapse when we need it most. Jai-Woo nodded, understanding the risk. What they were attempting defied the known laws of physics, at least the physics that the Valerians and other advanced races understood. The 7th dimensional drive would either establish humanity as equals in the galaxy or prove their enemies right about human limitations. The Valerians are bringing 12 ships, Jai-Woo said quietly, including their new dreadnought. They claim it's a courtesy escort, but the message is clear. Hannah's hands tightened around her datapad. They're showing off, as usual. Yes, Jai-Woo agreed. But they're also bringing every important diplomat and scientist in their government. If our drive works, she left the implication hanging. Every mocking face in one place, Tai-Ho finished, watching as humans rewrite the rules of the universe. Jai-Woo looked at each of her crew members, brilliant minds who had endured years of condescension and ridicule from species who considered themselves superior. We have 1 month, she said firmly. 1 month to perfect what they believe is impossible. 1 month until the laughter stops forever. As she turned to leave, Jai-Woo glanced back at the shimmering drive that represented humanity's greatest achievement and their biggest secret. Soon, the entire galaxy would know what humans were truly capable of. But for now, let them laugh. Let them mock. Let them underestimate. The Prometheus would be ready, and the mockery would end. The wind howled across the Antarctic Research Station as Dr. Tai-Ho stared at the object rotating slowly in the holographic display. 3 months had passed since the excavation team discovered the strange crystalline structure buried 2 kilometers beneath the ice sheet. At first, scientists thought it was just another artifact from Earth's mysterious past. Beautiful, but ultimately meaningless. Tai-Ho knew better. He hadn't slept properly in days, his eyes red-rimmed as they traced the impossible patterns etched within the crystal. You should rest, said Dr. Hana, entering the lab with 2 steaming cups. She placed one beside Tai-Ho's workstation. Looking at that thing for the 20th straight hour won't reveal any new secrets. Tai-Ho barely nodded, taking the cup without looking away from the display. It's not just a pattern, Hana. It's a language, a mathematical language. Look here. He pointed to a series of interlocking geometric shapes. Hana sighed. We've run every analysis. The structure is beautiful, yes, but there's no indication it's artificial, let alone the language. That's because we've been approaching it wrong, Tai-Ho said, suddenly animated. We've been treating it as a 3-dimensional object with random patterns. But what if? He quickly typed commands into his console, and the holographic image transformed. Hana gasped as the crystal structure unfolded into what clearly looked like a complex blueprint. What did you do? I applied 7-dimensional mathematics to the pattern analysis, Tai-Ho said, his voice barely above a whisper. The crystal isn't random. It's a machine, a blueprint for something beyond anything humans have ever built. That's impossible, Hana whispered, but her eyes were wide with wonder as she studied the transformed display. No one understands 7-dimensional math. Not even the Valerians claim to fully grasp beyond 5 dimensions. Someone did, Tai-Ho replied. Someone was here, on Earth, long before us. And they left this for whoever could understand it. 2 weeks later, in a classified workshop beneath the Antarctic station, Tai-Ho and Hana stood before a small prototype constructed according to the crystal's specifications. A series of interlocking rings surrounded a core that seemed to shift in and out of focus when viewed directly. Are you sure about this? Hana asked, her finger hovering over the activation switch. Tai-Ho nodded. If my translations are correct, This is a miniature version of what could become the most powerful drive system in known space, a device that manipulates reality through 7 dimensions simultaneously. And if your translations are wrong. Taiho gave a tired smile. Then we'll create a very expensive light show. Hana pressed the switch. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the air around the prototype began to shimmer. The rings spun faster, seemingly phasing in and out of existence. Instruments around the lab went haywire, some shutting down completely while others displayed impossible readings. It's working. Tahoe shouted over the high-pitched whine emanating from the device. A small sphere of what looked like distorted space formed in the center of the rings. Objects near it, a pencil, a coffee cup, began to shift position without visibly moving, as if reality itself was being gently folded around them. Just as suddenly, the effect stopped. The prototype powered down, leaving an eerie silence in the lab. Did it fail? Hannah asked, checking the instruments. Tahoe shook his head, his face alight with wonder. No, it worked exactly as designed. For exactly 30 seconds, that device manipulated 7-dimensional space in a controlled manner. He turned to face her, his eyes shining. Do you understand what this means? Hana nodded slowly. It means the Valerians were wrong about us. 6 months later, aboard the orbital shipyard that officially didn't exist, Commander Jiwoo floated through the central chamber of the Prometheus, watching as engineers installed the full-scale version of what was now called the folding drive. Based on Taiho and Hana's prototype, the drive had been scaled up to power an entire starship. How much longer? Jiwoo asked Chief Engineer Hyun-ki, who was directing the installation process. 3 days to complete installation, then at least a week of testing. Hyun-ki replied, We can't rush this, Commander. One miscalculation and... I know, Jiwoo interrupted, but we may not have that much time. She pulled up a holographic display showing a transmission from Earth's colonies in the Ta-City system. The message was clear. A Valerian fleet had entered the system, with an ultimatum. The human colonies would accept Valerian protection and guidance, or face consequences. The Valerians claim they're protecting us from ourselves, Jiwoo said bitterly. According to them, humanity's expansion is happening too quickly, without proper oversight from more evolved species. Hyun-ki's face hardened. They've always seen us as children, dangerous children who need adult supervision. Jiwoo nodded. Earth's Defense Council is meeting now. The Valerians have given us 1 week to respond. Before Hyun-ki could reply, Dr. Taho floated into the chamber, his face grim. I just received word. The Council has authorized deployment of the Prometheus. We launch in 48 hours. That's impossible. Hyun-ki protested. We haven't completed testing. The drive could fail catastrophically. It's a risk we have to take, Jiwoo said quietly. The Valerian fleet includes 3 dreadnoughts and multiple support vessels. Our conventional ships wouldn't stand a chance. Taiho nodded. If we surrender our colonies, it won't stop there. The Valerians will use this as proof that humanity needs their guidance. One by one, all our colonies will fall under their control. And if the drive fails? Hyun-ki asked. Then humanity learns its place in the galaxy, Jiwoo replied, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. But if it works, if the ancient knowledge left on our world truly gives us access to powers beyond Valerian understanding, then everything changes. 2 days later, the Prometheus detached from the orbital shipyard, its conventional engines pushing it away from Earth. Only a handful of officials knew its true purpose or capabilities. To most of humanity, it was simply another diplomatic vessel sent to negotiate with the Valerians at Ta-City. In her command chair, Jiwoo looked at the faces of her crew, scientists and soldiers who had worked tirelessly to make the impossible possible. Begin pre-jump procedures, she ordered. Prepare the folding drive. As the ship's systems hummed to life around her, Jiwoo thought about the immense gamble they were taking. In less than 24 hours, they would confront the Valerian fleet with technology that defied conventional understanding. If it worked, humanity would never again be mocked or threatened. If it failed, extinction was a very real possibility. "Drive is ready, Commander," Taiho reported from his station. "On your command." Jaiwu took a deep breath. "Activate the folding drive. Take us to Ta City." The stars outside the viewports began to distort as reality itself bent around the Prometheus. Humanity's fate now rested on ancient knowledge and the courage to use it. The Prometheus emerged from its dimensional fold at the edge of the Ta City system. The journey that should have taken weeks had lasted mere hours. On the main view screen, 18 Valerian warships hung in space like massive predators, their sleek hulls gleaming in the light of the system's sun. Behind them floated 12 smaller vessels bearing the markings of other advanced civilizations, observers invited to witness humanity's submission. Commander Jiwoo stood from her captain's chair, studying the formation. The Valerians had positioned their fleet in a crescent around the third planet, home to New Sol, humanity's largest colony in the system with over 2 million inhabitants. "They're not even trying to hide their intentions," said Lieutenant Min Su from the tactical station. "Those are siege positions." Jaiwu nodded. "They expected us to bring our entire defense fleet. They're prepared for a real fight." She allowed herself a small smile. "Instead, they get one ship." "We're being hailed," reported Communications Officer Da Jung. "It's the Valerian flagship." On screen, Jaiwu ordered, straightening her uniform. The view screen shifted to show the command center of the Valerian dreadnought. High Admiral Krell stood at its center, his silver-scaled skin and ceremonial armor designed to intimidate. Behind him stood representatives from the observer species, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely disguised amusement. "Commander Jiwoo," Krell began, his translator converting his sibilant language to human speech. "Your arrival is unexpected. We anticipated meeting with your full diplomatic corps and defense council. I speak with the full authority of Earth and its colonies," Jiwoo replied evenly. Krell's upper eye ridges rose slightly, the Valerian equivalent of a smirk. "One ship. This is Earth's response to our generous offer of protection." "We didn't request protection, Admiral." "Yet you clearly need it," Krell countered. "Our studies show human colonies expanding without proper safety protocols or ecological considerations. 3 separate incidents in the past year could have resulted in catastrophic failures. The Galactic Council agrees. Primitive species require guidance during their developmental phase." Jaiwu noticed several of the observers nodding in agreement. "We've reviewed your proposal," Jiwoo said. "Earth respectfully declines your offer of protection. The colonies of Ta City remain sovereign human territory." A ripple of what might have been laughter moved through the observers. Krell didn't bother hiding his amusement. "Commander, perhaps you misunderstand the situation. This isn't a negotiation. The Valerian Empire, with council backing, has determined that humanity requires oversight. We've brought documenting vessels to record this educational moment for future primitive species who might face similar, growing pains." Dr. Taiho stepped closer to Jiwoo, speaking quietly. "They're powering up targeting systems. Not weapons yet, but they're getting ready." Jaiwu acknowledged this with a slight nod but kept her eyes on Krell. "Admiral, I suggest you review Earth's history more carefully. Specifically, what happens when outside forces attempt to impose their will on human populations." Jiwoo took her seat in the command chair. "All crew, secure for dimensional manipulation. Dr. Taiho, initiate first phase." Taiho entered a series of commands, and the ship hummed as the folding drive activated. Unlike their journey to Ta City, this time the drive wasn't folding space around just the Prometheus. It was extending its field to encompass the approaching Valerian fighters. On the view screen, the fighters suddenly seemed to smear across space, their trajectories becoming erratic as the very fabric of reality warped around them. "It's working," Hannah exclaimed, watching the readings. The fighters are experiencing 7-dimensional distortion. Their navigation systems can't compensate. The Valerian fighters began to break formation, some drifting harmlessly past the Prometheus, while others spun in confusion, unable to target the human vessel that seemed to exist in multiple points in space simultaneously. On the main Valerian dreadnought, Admiral Krell watched in disbelief as his first wave of fighters failed to even approach the human ship. The observers behind him had fallen silent, their amusement replaced by confusion and growing concern. "Impossible," Krell muttered. "What are they doing?" One of his science officers looked up from a console, his scales pale with shock. "Admiral, the human vessel is generating spatial distortions unlike anything in our records. Our sensors can't get a consistent lock on their position." Back on the Prometheus, Ji-Woo watched as the Valerian fighters retreated in disarray. "Phase 1 successful," she noted. "Dr. Taho, prepare for Phase 2. Target the dreadnought's propulsion systems." Taho nodded grimly. "Targeting. But Commander, extending the field that far will push the drive beyond tested parameters." "Understood," Ji-Woo said. "Proceed." As the folding drive's power increased, the Prometheus itself seemed to shimmer, becoming hard to focus on with the naked eye. Around it, space itself bent and twisted as 7-dimensional forces reached out toward the Valerian flagship. "They're firing," Min-Su shouted as energy beams lanced from the dreadnought toward the Prometheus. But the beams passed harmlessly through empty space, the human vessel no longer occupying the position where it appeared to be. To the astonished Valerians, it seemed as if the Prometheus was in multiple places at once, a ghost ship that defied the laws of physics as they understood them. "Send our message to all vessels," Ji-Woo commanded. "Make sure the observers receive it too." Dae-Jung nodded, transmitting the carefully prepared statement. "The demonstration you are witnessing represents a fraction of humanity's true capabilities. We come in peace but will defend our sovereignty. The choice between cooperation and conflict is yours." On the view screen, Ji-Woo could see confusion and fear replacing the confidence on Valerian faces. For the first time in their long history, they faced something beyond their understanding, something that made them feel as primitive as they had always considered humans to be. The laughter had indeed ceased. Alarms blared across the bridge of the Valerian flagship as targeting systems failed to lock onto the Prometheus. Admiral Krell gripped the edges of his command platform, his silver scales darkening with rage and confusion. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Where is the human vessel?" His chief science officer, Lox, worked frantically at his console, his 6-fingered hands moving in a blur. "Admiral, our sensors are detecting the human ship in multiple locations simultaneously. This is impossible." On the main view screen, the Prometheus seemed to flicker and blur. One moment it appeared directly ahead. The next it seemed to be behind them, then above, below, and on all sides at once. The effect was disorienting, like trying to focus on an object through rapidly moving water. "It's some kind of holographic trick," Krell insisted. "Launch another fighter squadron. Find the real ship." Aboard the Prometheus, Dr. Taho's fingers danced across his control panel, adjusting the 7th-dimensional drive with subtle precision. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he monitored power levels that fluctuated wildly. "Phase shift complete," he reported, his voice strained with concentration. "We're now operating partially in the 7th dimension." Commander Ji-Woo nodded, watching the tactical display as it showed the Valerian fleet's confused movements. What the aliens couldn't understand was that the Prometheus wasn't using illusions or tricks. It was actually existing in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, with its primary mass shifting constantly between these states. "They're launching more fighters," Lieutenant Min-Su reported. "2 squadrons, trying to surround our position." "Let them come," Ji-Woo said calmly. "Dr. Hana, begin the echo procedure." Dr. Hana nodded, activating a secondary system connected to the drive. "Creating quantum duplicates now." The effect was immediate and spectacular. The energy field generated by the seventh-dimensional drive began to create what appeared to be copies of the Prometheus. These weren't illusions, they were actual quantum echoes of the ship, each existing in a slightly different dimensional plane, but visible from normal space. One Prometheus became 10, then 50, then hundreds. Soon, a swarm of seemingly identical human vessels surrounded the Valerian fleet, each one shimmering with the same otherworldly light. In the observer vessels, representatives from the galaxy's most advanced civilizations watched in stunned silence. The Meridini ambassador, whose species prided themselves on their mastery of quantum mechanics, turned to his aide. "Are you recording this?" he asked quietly. "Our scientists will not believe it otherwise." The aide nodded wordlessly, too shocked to speak. Admiral Krell's composure finally broke. "Fire all weapons," he shouted. "Target every image. One of them must be real." Energy beams and plasma torpedoes lanced out from the Valerian vessels, cutting through space in a dazzling display of firepower. For a moment, the darkness of space lit up like a small sun as the most advanced weapons in known space sought their target. But when the energy dissipated, every image of the Prometheus remained intact. The weapons had passed harmlessly through the quantum duplicates, while the real ship, existing partially in dimensions the Valerians couldn't access, remained untouched. On the Prometheus bridge, the crew watched the Valerian assault with a mixture of relief and awe. All weapons missed, Min Su confirmed, unable to keep the wonder from his voice. Not a single hit registered on our shields. Jai Wu allowed herself a small smile. "Dr. Taho, are you ready for the demonstration?" Taho looked up from his console, his eyes bright despite his exhaustion. "Ready, Commander. The drive is stable enough for precision manipulation. Then let's show them what humanity is truly capable of," Jai Wu said. "Target the flagship's weapon systems. Limited effect only. We want to disable, not destroy." Taho nodded, making careful adjustments to the drive settings. "Targeting now. Initiating dimensional fold." The Prometheus itself seemed to fade slightly as its presence in normal space diminished. More of its mass shifted into the higher dimensions, allowing it to directly manipulate the fabric of reality around the Valerian flagship. Aboard Krell's vessel, warning lights suddenly flashed across every console. Power systems fluctuated wildly as strange energy readings appeared throughout the ship. "What's happening?" Krell demanded, watching in horror as his weapon controls went dark. Lox shook his head in disbelief. "Admiral, something is altering the quantum state of our weapons array. The matter itself is being reorganized at a fundamental level." From the observer vessels, the sight was even more incredible. The space around the Valerian flagship seemed to bend and fold, creating visual distortions, as if reality itself was being manipulated like fabric. Where the Prometheus's influence touched, Valerian technology simply stopped functioning. "They're not attacking us," Lox realized, his voice barely audible. "They could destroy us completely, but they're only disabling our weapons." One by one, each Valerian ship found its offensive capabilities neutralized, not through conventional warfare, not through superior firepower, but through direct manipulation of the physical laws that govern their technology. In the center of the Prometheus bridge, Jai Wu stood watching the tactical display as red threat indicators turned green across the entire Valerian fleet. The seventh-dimensional drive hummed at the heart of the ship, still generating its field of quantum duplicates as a protective measure. "All Valerian weapons systems have been neutralized," Min Su reported. "Their engines remain operational, but reduced to minimal power. They couldn't leave the system if they wanted to." Jai Wu nodded. "Open a channel to Admiral Krell and all observer vessels." When the communication screen activated, it showed Krell's face twisted with a mixture of rage and fear, an expression few humans had ever seen on a Valerian. "This is Commander Jai Wu of the Earth vessel Prometheus," she began, her voice steady and clear. "As you can see, your fleet has been neutralized without a single shot fired. We could have destroyed your vessels entirely, but that is not humanity's way." She paused, letting her words sink in. "For centuries, your species and others have treated humans as children, primitives barely worth acknowledging. Today, that perception ends. What you've witnessed is but a fraction of what the seventh dimensional drive can achieve." Around Krell, the observer representatives had moved closer to the transmission, their expressions ranging from fear to fascination. "Humanity doesn't seek dominance or revenge," Jiwu continued. "We seek only respect and recognition of our sovereignty. Your fleet will remain disabled until agreements are signed acknowledging Earth's independent status and the withdrawal of all claims on human colonies." She nodded to Daejung, who cut the transmission. In the silence that followed, the crew of the Prometheus looked at each other, the weight of what they had accomplished finally sinking in. "It worked," Dr. Hana whispered. "It actually worked." Dr. Tahoe nodded, finally allowing himself to relax slightly. "The ancient builders who left the crystal on Earth would be proud. We understood their message." Jiwu turned to face her crew, her expression solemn. "Today marks a new chapter in human history. The galaxy will never look at us the same way again." Outside, the quantum duplicates of the Prometheus continued to shimmer in space, surrounding the disabled Valerian fleet like silent sentinels, a visible reminder that humanity had forever changed the balance of power in the galaxy. 3 days after the confrontation at Ta City, the emergency session of the Galactic Council began. The Grand Chamber was filled to capacity, with representatives from all spacefaring civilizations in attendance. For the first time in Council history, the human delegation was not seated in the lowest tier. Commander Jiwu stood at the central podium, her blue uniform crisp and unadorned. Behind her sat Dr. Tahoe and Dr. Hana, the architects of humanity's breakthrough. The chamber, usually filled with whispers and side conversations, was completely silent. "The events at Ta City have been witnessed and recorded," began the ancient moderator, his translucent skin paler than usual. "High Admiral Krell of the Valerian Empire has formally withdrawn all claims to human territory and disbanded the Protection Initiative." On a large display above the chamber, footage from the observer vessels played, showing the Prometheus as it manipulated 7-dimensional space around the Valerian fleet. The recording showed weapons fire passing harmlessly through quantum duplicates, while the actual ship seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously. "Commander Jiwu will now address the Council regarding Earth's position moving forward," the moderator announced. Jiwu looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species that had for centuries regarded humans as barely evolved primates. Today, those same eyes held caution, respect, and in some cases, fear. For too long, humanity has been treated as children in a universe of adults. Jiwu began. "We were denied access to knowledge, restricted from expansion, and mocked for our supposed limitations. At Tau Ceti, we demonstrated that those limitations existed only in the minds of those who imposed them." She gestured to the display showing the disabled Valerian fleet. "We could have destroyed those ships. We could have answered centuries of condescension with violence. Instead, we chose restraint." High Admiral Krell, seated with the Valerian delegation, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Humanity doesn't seek dominance or revenge," Jiwu continued. "We've developed this technology not to conquer, but to ensure our right to exist without interference. The laughter stops today, but cooperation can begin." She nodded to Dr. Tahoe, who activated a small device. A holographic display appeared, showing the basic principles of 7-dimensional physics. "We offer this knowledge freely to all Council races," Jiwu said. "Not as a weapon, but as a tool to advance all our civilizations. In return, we ask only for what should have been ours all along: equality, respect, and self-determination." The Council chamber erupted into discussion. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves united in shock and consideration of the possibilities this human technology presented. 1 month later, Jiwu stood at the window of Earth's new embassy on the Galactic Council station. The view showed dozens of ships coming and going, many bearing the markings of races that had never before bothered to communicate directly with humans. Another delegation from the Meridiani, announced Daejung, now serving as diplomatic officer. They're bringing their top physicists to discuss potential applications of the drive technology in medical science. Jae-woo nodded. And the Valerians. Their science academy has officially requested a research partnership. They're particularly interested in how the ancient Antarctic crystal led to our breakthrough. The door opened and Dr. Taeho entered, looking more rested than he had in months. The Galactic Science Council approved our proposal, he said, his face bright with excitement. Joint exploration of the 7-dimensional space will begin next month. And the restrictions on human colony expansion? Ji-woo asked. Withdrawn unanimously, Taeho replied. In fact, 3 different species have requested permission to establish cultural exchange centers on our colonies. Jae-woo smiled, remembering how recently those same species had argued that humans couldn't be trusted to manage their own affairs. Funny how quickly perceptions change when you demonstrate capabilities they thought impossible. Not just perceptions, Dr. Hana said, joining them. The entire structure of galactic society is shifting. The Xerillians have already adapted our drive principles to revolutionize their energy production. The Meridiani are using it to develop new medical scanning technology that can detect diseases across multiple dimensional planes. Jae-woo turned from the window to face her friends. And that was always the point, wasn't it? Not to dominate, but to contribute. To show that humanity had something valuable to offer. Speaking of contributions, Taeho said, activating a small holographic display, the Antarctic excavation team found something new. Another crystal, deeper than the first. The hologram showed an object similar to the one that had led to the drive's creation, but with even more complex patterns embedded within. Initial analysis suggests it contains information on something beyond even 7-dimensional physics, Hana explained. We're just beginning to understand the implications. Jae-woo studied the new crystal's image. The ancient builders left us more than just technology. They left us a philosophy, that limitations exist only until we find the courage to move beyond them. Outside the window, a Valerian diplomatic vessel docked alongside ships from a dozen other species. Inside each were representatives who had come not to instruct humans or restrict them, but to learn from them. 6 months after the event that became known as the Thoth City demonstration, Commander Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the upgraded Prometheus I. The new vessel incorporated refinements to the drive system that allowed even more precise manipulation of dimensional space. All systems ready, Commander reported Min-soo from his station. The joint scientific team is prepared for the first controlled expedition into the 8th dimension. Jae-woo nodded, looking around at the bridge crew, now a mixture of humans and representatives from 5 other species, all working together. The Valerian ambassador sends his personal good wishes, Daejung said, a hint of amusement in his voice. He seems particularly eager for the expedition's success. Amazing how supportive they've become, Dr. Hana remarked dryly. Perhaps next, they'll claim they always believed in human potential. Jae-woo smiled. Let them say what they will. Actions speak louder than words. She took her place in the command chair, feeling the subtle hum of the drive system as it prepared to take them beyond the known universe. Begin dimensional shift sequence, she ordered. Let's see what other impossibilities we can make possible. As the Prometheus I and its diverse crew prepared to venture into realms no known species had ever explored, Ji-woo reflected on how quickly everything had changed. The mockery had indeed ceased, replaced by respect, cooperation, and perhaps most importantly, wonder. Humanity had found its place among the stars not through conquest or intimidation, but by refusing to accept the limitations others had tried to impose. And in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever.